Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the features I've been working on for Big Blue. This stuff is mainly input related. The goal is to allow people to have multiple devices connected to the arcade cabinet that work independently. So if you have multiple spinners or trackballs, or keyboards or whatever connected to your arcade cabinet, I want to be able to read those inputs, individually. So in the Big Blue configuration utility, the key bindings has been replaced with just controls, and you can see what we have here now is, just a grid basically of different controls, and so you can select, which device you want to use, and then the action in the front end, and then the actual input, that you're going to use for this. So you'll notice at the top here we have this devices thing, and this basically shows you the USB and PS2 devices that are connected to your computer at the time. And you'll notice that we have multiple mice here, and two keyboards, a standard PS2 keyboard and a USB keyboard. It's interesting that with the way mice work that have extra buttons, they're actually registering as keyboard inputs. So that's why even if you just have a mouse installed, it'll show up as a keyboard and a mouse. And you can actually pull in these things to see what the ID is in Windows, the device ID at the time, the vendor ID, and the product ID of the device. And this is using information that's been pulled in from linuxusb.org. There's a really great service there where they're basically collecting all this information on different USB devices so you can get some human readable information about them. Okay, so you'll notice here that all these things are just mapped to any keyboard. So your options are basically, you can say, okay, I want any keyboard connected to the computer to be able to exit the front end when I press escape. Alternatively, we could put in some other controls here. So we could say, let's do mouse 2, and let's have the second mouse, I don't know, punch with a rampage character if I press the left mouse button. Okay, and then let's add another one. Let's say I want the first mouse to be able to turn down the volume if I move the mouse down. And then let's say that I want to have another mouse input here for turning up the volume when you move the mouse up. Okay, so now we have basically some different mappings here. I can fill out some other things too. Let's just say, I don't know, let's do mouse 2, have them also punch right, do some other stuff. Okay, but that's good enough for the purpose of this. So we have some stuff in there. So I'll save this guy, and we'll start up the front end, and we'll see how this plays out. So you'll notice that I'm clicking with the mouse and I'm punching left and right because I map those. I could also use the keyboard to do those. But the interesting thing here is that you'll see how I have the mouse cursor trapped to the window here. So I'm moving this mouse. I'm moving one of my mouse devices, and nothing's happening, right? But if I move the other mouse, it's going to actually adjust the volume. So you see, as I'm moving it up, the volume is going up, and as I'm moving it down, the volume is going down. So basically, I have one mouse that's adjusting the volume, and then I have a second mouse that I can move, and it's completely independent, and that's the thing that punches and does whatever I want to with the rampage characters. So basically, You can connect almost anything and configure the controls so things can work independently. You could install a spinner on your arcade cabinet and have the spinner dedicated to just adjusting the volume. And the interesting thing about this is I'm adding options in here where you can actually choose whether you want all of the inputs to be global or not. So you can even adjust the volume using a mouse while you're in MAME. And we're also doing similar stuff here to be able to, override escape key behavior to, bail out of, crappy emulators that, won't let you just leave the emulator by pressing one input. But what's also interesting is that you can have a global exit that's actually mapped to a mouse input now. It doesn't even have to be like, a escape key overriding the exit. You could actually say like, I want mouse button 5 to override this thing and close the program and go back to the front end. So basically, the inputs are completely generic now. Anything can be anything. Yeah, so this is using the raw input API for Windows. It's also lower latency, than using direct input, and some other methods to get inputs. So I'm going to be adjusting this and tweaking it. I feel like I'm getting close here. There are a few more things that I could do. One challenge with raw input is that there isn't a native structure that they give you to deal with joysticks. You basically just get raw binary data from raw input, but it can be parsed. And the thing is, there are so few different types of gamepads that people actually use. Just writing a parser for it and doing it in raw input might be worth it. Because you figure, you do the PlayStation and Xbox pads and you've covered 90% of the joysticks that people will be using anyway. And it would be really nice to have joystick control using raw input because, there's no reason that joysticks, can't be really low latency. The only reason they tend to have more input latency than keyboard controls is just due to the fact that you're going through direct input. So, that is something to look at. But for the time being, though, this is pretty good, particularly for just a front end, right? That we have this much flexibility on the controls. Most, native PC games don't actually go through the bother of implementing, raw input like this. So, hopefully a release will be coming soon, but I really want to test this one thoroughly and, have it be, near flawless when I put it out there.